Ever had a YouTube video that keeps following you around, that keeps showing up in your feed until one day you just give in and watch it? Well, this happened to me in the weirdest way possible and at the worst possible moment. And as unlikely as it sounds, it involved an 80-year-old woman that daily drives an RX-7 and her last 3 days with her car. But before I go into details, just let me say that this actually might have been the best YouTube video I've watched all year long. And all that happened while I was in a bit of a rabbit hole. You see, I was buried in research for my GTR and Porsche 959 video. And in order to get all the details on the R32 GTR right, I had to go deep. This involved understanding what was going on with Japanese touring car racing in the 80s and 90s. Naturally, sooner or later I found myself watching obscure Japanese highlight reels and even full-length races from the 80s. I was soaking up details about the cars, the teams, the drivers and so on. I guess that's the famous YouTube rabbit hole we all know, right? Only this time I was watching videos that probably only few Westerners had ever seen. And I guess the YouTube algorithm somehow got the impression that I'm fluent in Japanese. Well, I wish, but anyway, suddenly this weird video kept showing up. An elderly woman and an RX-7, I just couldn't make any sense of it. And most importantly, I didn't have time for it. I had to get on with my GTR script, right? So I did the only sensible thing at the moment, I ignored it. But you can probably guess what happened next. This video just kept showing up, again and again, quietly but forcefully insisting that I watch it. It got to a point where I began to wonder, did YouTube know something about me that I didn't? Why was it forcing this video up on me? My curiosity was piqued to say the least. And then the day came. I decided that enough is enough. And finally I clicked on it. Oh boy, was this one a treat. Apparently the story had gone viral on Japanese local news and people were all over it. And now I understand why. In my opinion, it's one of the purest stories about car culture. It somehow perfectly explains why we feel connected to cars in the first place. And honestly, everybody who has even the slightest interest in cars will appreciate what this 80-year-old woman has to tell us. But it all starts decades ago in 1998. And as unlikely as it sounds, the story begins with Initial D. For all those that don't have a clue what I'm talking about, here's the shortest explanation I can give you. Ask any 90s kid like myself how they got into cars. And they'll most likely name one of two things. Gran Turismo on a PlayStation 1 or Initial D or both. So what does Initial D have to do with anything? First and foremost, it's a story about kids in a rural Japanese town and their love for cars, where a local delivery boy named Takumi becomes an underground street racing legend in his 8.6. And as you might have guessed, the cars featured aren't luxury supercars. Instead, Initial D is chock full of mass-market Japanese sports cars like the GTR, Mitsubishi Evo and of course the RX-7. This is what creates its charm. Everyday cars souped up by average people out of their own pocket. Feel familiar, right? In other words, it's a realistic portrayal of the underground drifting culture in 90s Japan. And what it did was bring this part of car culture into the mainstream. When the anime began airing in 1998, you couldn't miss it. This is how big it was, and not only among kids and young adults, because it also caught the attention of a woman named Naoko Nishimoto. She was 55 years old at the time, but more important than her age was the fact that Initial D somehow struck a chord with her. Most likely because of the situation she was in. You see, she was always drawn to cars. From the time she was a young woman, when she first got her driver's license, to the day when she first saw Initial D on TV. Back then, she was driving a Toyota Corona Coupe, a car that she really liked, but due to family and work responsibilities back then, she didn't really have the freedom to choose a car she really loved. And in her words, the Corona started to lose power on slopes, so she felt like it was time to start looking for a replacement. Her only criteria was that it had to be a two-door sports car. But other than that, she didn't know where to start. This is when Initial D started airing, and watching the RX-7 in action, she fell in love at first sight. She immediately knew that this is the one. This is the car she's been waiting for. When she told her son about it, he looked it up and found out the exact make and model, a Mazda RX-7. So straight to their local Mazda dealership they went. Since Naoko Nishimoto had made up her mind before they even arrived at the dealership, she bought the car right away. To her surprise, the RX-7 sounded exactly as she remembered it from TV. Shifting through the gears was just as thrilling as she had imagined it to be. In short, just being able to drive the RX-7 has always been pure joy to her. And from the get-go she knew she'd never need another car again. Can you imagine that? For 25 years she never even thought about changing cars. In her words, once you drive this, it becomes your one and only. In my opinion, it feels like quite a blessing to find a car that you feel like you can enjoy until old age. What more can you wish for, right? No wonder that she's been driving her RX-7 almost every single day, making long trips of hundreds of kilometers or just getting groceries from around the corner and everything in between. But something in her changed when she turned 78. On her 78th birthday, she suddenly started thinking about the fact that she'd turn 80 in just 2 years. And somehow this thought sparked an idea within her. She decided that she would return her driver's license at 80. But this idea didn't come from a place of sorrow or regret, not even bad health, but instead it came from a place of joy. Because this single decision made the feeling of driving her RX-7 even more special. As strange as it sounds, she began looking forward to turning 80 and therefore giving up her license and her RX-7. But guess what? For the following 2 whole years, she's enjoyed driving her RX-7 even more than ever before. Reflecting on a wonderful car life, knowing that it would end with her perfect car, her RX-7. To put it simply, after enjoying this car for 25 years, she felt ready to part with it. There was just one problem though. What should happen with the RX-7 after she gives up her license? When she first tried to put it up for sale, she received more than 400 inquiries. Not really a surprise, right? An 80-year-old woman selling a stock RX-7 in perfect condition, now who wouldn't want to buy that? Well, for Naoko Nishimoto, the situation quickly became overwhelming. Because first and foremost, she wanted to make sure that her car would continue to be cared for in the way that she did. And that's when luck struck. Somehow, local news got wind of her story. And this is when everything changed. All over Japan, her story about the RX-7 blew up. So much so that Mazda got in contact with her directly. They understood her situation, and they understood the meaning of her RX-7, not only for her, but for car culture as a whole. This RX-7 represented something truly authentic. It's an inspiring tale that perfectly demonstrates the connection between an unlikely owner and her car, the emotional bond that they formed between them, and that was now about to end. So they made a promise to her. If she sells her RX-7 back to Mazda, they would maintain it with the same love and joy that she gave it over the past 25 years. They'll keep it in great condition so that it will be able to continue to spread hope and inspiration to many more people in the years to come. Just like it did with Naoko Nishimoto. In the words of Mazda's CEO, if this RX-7 brought color and joy to her life, it has been an honor for every Mazda employee. So, Naoko Nishimoto agreed to return her RX-7 and on her 80th birthday, without any sadness or regrets, she went for her last drive.